Okay, in this video I'm gonna go and talk a little bit about the gradient tool. There are a few different ways that you can create your gradients, and this is now a new implemented aspect in the version 3. It was available in the old version, but that was a hidden feature. But it is now available in the extension Inkstitch and in the params or in the tools fill convert to gradient blocks. So there are a few different ways that you can create your gradients. How shall we start? Well, let's first go and clean. I'll delete that one and we'll have a clean sheet. And now I'm gonna go and I'll create here a little rectangle. Oh, I want to have the sharp corners. We can set a color to whatever we want. Oh, fill and no stroke. And we go path, object to path. So now we have this object and we want to apply a gradient. Well, if in the old way, what we would do is we would go and create another shape over top on where we want a gradient. That still can be done, and we can use the Bezier tool, or we can use a rectangle, or we can use a circle drawing over top of it. So there's many ways that you can create some of these aspects, and it all depends on what kind of gradient you want to create. So I'm gonna go now with the Bezier tool and just draw a strange shape over top of it, and I will go and select, and I will hold down the shift key and select my rectangle, and I go path, and I will go and use the division. So now the object is divided into 3 different objects. As you can see, I'll give them different colors so it becomes easier visible. So now for the gradient to work, often what we do is we use a solid color on this end and a solid color on this end, and then the center we want to have a double the object duplicated. So we're gonna have one. I'll go and duplicate this one, and I'll change the color on that one for a moment too. So we want one color to go with the full fill stitch on this side, and the other one we want to go with this one, with the other fill stitch. So we have to this one and the one on the right. If we want to have that as last, then we can set those as the same color, and the ones in the back we can set with the same color as that one. Oh, no stroke. Make sure that they are the same color. And what we have now, we're setting a regular fill stitch on this object and a regular fill stitch on that object. But on this object, what we want to do is we will go and do a well, let's go to Inkstitch, and we go to the params, and so yeah, then where we want to be careful with, we want to use the end row spacing, and some of these numbers, it will take a little bit of practice on what setting to use. We first want to go also turn off the underlay, then we go to the fill stitch. We want our underpath selected or deselected, so now the stitches, they will be running along the edge in order to travel from one spot to another spot. Also, where we have to be considerate, and we may have to play with some of these settings. That also depends on your thread size you're using. If you're using a heavyweight or a lightweight thread, some of these settings, they may have to be changed a little bit. And what you can also do is you can play with it and change the setting for the bottom object differently than setting the params for the top object. So as you can see, I got here an end row spacing of 1, and the spacing between rows is 0.25. So now I'm gonna go and change this number, and then you will see that the density becomes quite a bit higher in the start, or in this case in the end. The end row spacing, and I'll change that number pretty high too, and I go to a 3. There you can see that the spacing on this end is quite a bit wider than what it is here on the bottom. So those are a few numbers where you always need to be playing around with, and the best is to go and create a few simple objects and change a few of these settings and do a stitch out with the thread you're planning on using and see what kind of coverage you get. And it depends on what kind of color you want to have showing through the most and how much you want to have it showing through. So those are the numbers where you would need to play around with. Okay, now I'm going to cancel out of this. So that is one way that you can create the gradient. This way you can also do it with text, and you can just type any text. I'll just type here, oh, I pressed the wrong button here. And select it, and there too we can go and draw. Since this is a group, we can work with each individual letter individually if we so desire, but we can also work with it as a group, and we can do here exactly the same thing. And I'll change the color on that one. Oh, and select that object. Oh, it should. Okay, there we go. And then the shift key, hold down the text, and then path, and then division. And now you can see, or I'll select the center part for a moment, and so now I have the center part selected, and I'll change the color there. Oh, I'm pressing the stroke button. I want to have the fill. There you can see we have here the center what are separated where we would want a gradient. then we would want also the bottom part. We want to have the same color as the center. So, and to make sure that you have the right color, then you can go and use your dropper, and now that has the same color. And let me see, so we have now one part is the green, but now we need the center ones. We need to duplicate those. The center ones need to be duplicated, and we give them a different color. They need to be the same color as the top one. And now we can go and select them, and I'll drag them out of the way. Now we can see that we have the gradient section that has two layers on top of each other, one for the going with the green and one for going with the blue. So now we have to, when we apply the params, we have to watch the stitch direction and from which where it starts and where it ends. So we may have to apply the start command and the end command. Okay, now I will go and delete this, and now we'll do a different aspect of creating. So now we can go and I'll create just a rectangle again. Then I go path, object to path. Now I will go to my fill and stroke, my fill and stroke tab, and I will select here my second icon or third icon, because the first is no fill, then it is a flat color, and then we get the linear gradient. Now I can set my gradient colors. I can, as you can see, here are the stops, and I can select each individual stop, and I can change the color on the stop. So now I have a solid color there. Now what I can do is I can drag these color stops. I can drag them over. If I want to have them in a specific place, we can set here the stop offset, and the full width, that is 1. So if we want to divide it in a thirds, then we would go and select each one, and then that would be 0.67. that would be 1/3. And if we're selecting this one, then we would go and put that at 33. Now everything should be divided up in thirds. So now, but we can also, with, as you can see, there are nodes over here down the center, and that is our gradient. So if we are in the node select, we can also, as you can see, now we can drag our slider over, or our color stops, whatever you want to call it, and we can put them to wherever we want. Now when we apply this, then Inkstitch will from this end to the first color stop, it will make it a solid color. Then it will make the in between the two color stops, it will create the two objects what need to go on top of each other, and apply some of the params and apply some of the commands automatically. And then from the last color stop to the end, it will create a solid color also. Also, if you want to work with more than just two colors, that is also possible. You can add as many color stops as you want by clicking here on the plus. And so I'm just gonna go and add one more, and that one goes there in the center. And so now I want to change the center one. I want to change the color. I can change and drag them and slide them whichever way I want, or I can do it here in the main screen in the node select, and I can drag these points to where I desire. And then now we'll go to the next step. So I'll remove this one for a moment. If you want to remove it, then you can go back here again and go to the delete the stop, and now we are back to the two colors again. So I'm just gonna go here to the two colors. Then we go extension, ink stitch, tools fill, convert to gradient blocks. Then we get here a screen pop up, and it's asking for the end row spacing. The default, I don't know exactly what a default is anymore, because it seems to open up on the last one you have used, but you don't really have to worry about this, because this can be changed afterwards. So I have it here at 1, and you can do a live preview if you so desire, but I'm just gonna go here and apply, and then I'm gonna close out of this window. And now we can see or we can see at least that a start and a stop point have start and stop command have been added to each of the objects, or to a few of the objects. We cannot see everything what is in behind here, but if we go to the objects, layers and objects panel, we can see that there is 1, 2, 3, there is 4 objects. And to check which one is which one, you can just go and turn off the visibility for a moment, and there we don't see any change, so that must be something in the back. And there we can see that is the center one, and this one, that will be the blue in the center, what will be the gradient. Then also what Inkstitch does automatically, depending on the angle of the gradient that you're setting, it automatically applies the, if you go Inkstitch params, it automatically has the angle of the line of stitches. So because it is the excuse me, so the density on this side is bigger than the density on this side, so that depends on the order of your color blocks. So that is Inkstitch fills that in automatically. If you would have had it in an angle, Inkstitch would have automatically applied a different angle of the stitches here already also. Then you can change your settings again. You can change your fill stitch length if you so desire. The spacing between the rows, what can be changed. If you want to have a denser on the end, or if you want to have it fairly open, then you go to a higher number. As you can see here, the end is fairly open, so that depends on what kind of visual you want in the end. And here the end row spacing, that is when that pop-up window end row spacing, so that is here as the 1. If you so desire to change that, you can play with it. You can change it to whatever number you desire, depending on what thread you're using and what kind of visual you want in the end. And then all you need to do is, once you're satisfied with your settings, you can go apply and quit. And also we can go here, extension, Inkstitch, and we can go to the visual, to the simulator. And as you can see, so there's all kinds of things where you can play around with in your settings. And oh, come on. For some reason it's not responding too quick. Have to be a little patient here and there. But there you can see, here it looks like it is still a little bit open, so we may want to change a few of the settings. Like I say, we can be considerate on the setting on the bottom. We may want to have that a little more dense than the setting what we have on the top. And so, and that is in a way, that is, oh, Inkscape is okay. There we're back, and I'll delete this one. So and here too the same thing with text. Oh, and then we select, and I'll go and make that a little bigger here for the visual. Then we go same thing, we can go to the gradient, we can set our colors, and I'll make that a solid color on the back. There we go. Now we have the two colors, and if we want to have a solid area on the bottom and on the top of the text, now you can see we have on this side is the solid color and this side is the solid, but now we want to change it for on the bottom and on the top. So we go here to the node select, and now we can go and we can change the direction of if you line this point up on the bottom of the object and that one on the object, then this gives you the space from this node to that node. That gives you the solid area, and from this node to this node, that will give you the gradient section. So if you want to have that gradient smaller, then we just drag these sliders over, and there we have it. If we're satisfied, then we go again, extension, ink stitch, tools fill, convert to gradient blocks, and here you see that end row spacing again, and we can go and apply. Oh, I have not had that before, but that's okay. The gradient is applied. Let's retry. Now that I have the selection box around the text, I guess I was still in the gradient. So we go ink stitch, tools fill, convert to gradient blocks, and hit the apply. No, it doesn't want to do it. Okay, then we have the next option, object to path, because I did not go and convert the text to a path. Sometimes it seems to work, and sometimes the object does not seem to work. So the safest way is always object to path, and then do a retry. Ink stitch, tools fill, convert to gradient blocks, and apply. There we go. Now it worked, and now we can see all the start and stop commands are applied, and we can go and I'll peel a few things apart here. There you can see that is a solid and that is a solid, and we'll have here the gradient, and also we will see that if we run a param, it would so in a certain in the right order. First the bottom ones. So this bottom one, it would also have automatically the params set for the right direction. And there you can see that the density on the start is higher, and the spacing, the end row spacing is wider over here. So ink stitch has automatically applied the proper directions on getting the right flow of the stitches. Okay, I think that is all I have for now, and have fun, and I hope this helps you, and play with it, and do a few test pieces, like create a few rectangles and use a few different settings and then do a stitch out with the yarn you're using, and then you can see, you get a visual on what settings would work best, and there are many options available to create your gradient embroideries with the new ink stitch version. Okay, thanks for watching.